I grew up most of my childhood in Mexico, and when I was 12, my parents told me that in their tradition, I am supposed to get married when I'm 15. Um, so during that 3 year period, you meet your fiance, you learn how to cook, clean, raise kids, and that's basically going to be your life. Um, I had a very heavy routine between cleaning, cooking, going to school, and doing all of this if I wanted to keep going to school. When I turned 14, I knew ever since the beginning I knew I was an American citizen. When I was 14, I decided to take on the option of going to school in Texas, but my parents couldn't follow me because they were immigrants, so I had to do it on my own. When I got to Texas, I settled in with an uncle, started going to school, got a job, and everything was pretty much easy from that point on until I started to feel a pain in one of my sides, and it got worse and worse as time went by, and I decided to go to a clinic that was nearby, and they diagnosed me with a cancerous tumor in my liver. Um, After thinking about it for a while during winter break of my sophomore year of high school, I decided to go to Mexico since I knew I had health insurance there and I didn't have it in Texas. As as I went to as I got on the bus, I noticed there was an old man and this boy that kind of looked similar to my age. It was a 13-hour bus ride, and in the middle of the bus ride, the boy gets up and asks me if he can sit down next to me because I was alone, and the old man was snoring and bothering him. I said no, but he sat down anyways. He told me his name was Daniel, but that he preferred to be called Danny. We talked the entire bus ride, and we made jokes and played pranks. And as soon as we got to Mexico and into the city, I told him that I didn't know where my parents lived, and he knew his way around. So he decided to help me out and find my parents' house. Um, After that, he promised that he'd meet me the very next day to go to my appointment with me. Um, and I thought he was lying at first because I had just met him, but the very next day he was there, and ever since that day he went with me to every single appointment. I didn't go back to Texas until 5 months later. He was there with me most of the time, but it got really rough because my brother had to help me out around the house. It was really hard. He had to help me out even to go to the bathroom and do basic things. So I kind of started feeling useless, and I decided to quit my treatment because I was set on dying at that point. I didn't want to keep fighting because just got harder and harder, and I saw no results. But Danny became this person in my life that guided me into keep fighting for my life because he said no matter what, it would always be the most valuable thing I would ever have. So I went back into treatment after a long conversation with my parents and with him and him pushing me forward. And eventually, a year later, I came out perfectly fine. And my tumor I haven't been diagnosed with any others. After that year, Danny decided that Danny and I became more than just friends, and one night he told me he wanted to go out to the movies, but I told him I was tired, and that same night there was an accident in his house which was set on fire, and since he was asleep, he got intoxicated with CO2, and that very night at 4 a.m. they called us into the ICU, and Danny was unresponsive until the moment that we were all there. It was kind of like he knew, and he opened his eyes, looked at us one more time, and he closed them back up again, and that was the last time any of us ever saw Danny alive. After that, it was just kind of hard for me to keep going because the person that had taught me to fight most for my life didn't get a chance to fight for theirs.